Welcome to Some Good Tea, where we drink some tea and we share some tea. I'm your host, Katie, and today I'm sharing some tea with my friend Cameron. Say hi, Cameron.
Hi, Cameron. Oh, wait, that's me.
Yeah, that's you. Today we are having some tea by Numi. This is their Chocolate Rooibos Tea. Cameron, he's one of my friends that doesn't regularly drink tea. And so when I was talking to him and trying to figure out like, oh, what tea should we try? He specifically asked for something with chocolate. So I got the most chocolate tea that I feel like there is. So yeah, that's what we're going to be enjoying today. And our topic is one I've been really looking forward to. It's Dungeons and Dragons. So as per usual, we're going to have 20 questions. We're going to be rolling our 20-sided dice. And we'll see what fun things we can talk about this very nerdy game. You think you're ready, Cameron?
Oh, I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You've been preparing your whole life for specific.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Mhm. Just my podcast, nothing else. That's all that
Nope.
matters.
That's all that matters.
Clearly. Well, would you like to roll the dice first?
Oh, yes. Here we go. It
Uh-huh.
is a 5.
5. Ooh. This is great, actually. This is perfect. So your question is, do you listen to any Dungeons and Dragons podcasts, shows, etc.? If so, which do you like the best and why?
Oh, boy.
I know.
I listen to several, but
Mhm.
only one or two of them consistently. And when I say listen, I mean watch/listen,
That's fair. Yeah.
depending on where I'm at the moment. But Critical Role and Dimension 20 are the
Ooh.
only two I really consistently listen to.
Yeah. Yeah. I can definitely back that up myself. I feel like I more frequently watch them, as both of those, for those who don't know, both of them have uh, uh watchable options, like on YouTube or through other streaming services. And so I most often will watch them because I like to see the expression on the players' faces and things like that. Do you prefer one over the other, or not really?
Probably, I think it depends on the day, really. If I'm looking for a whole bunch of chaos, I usually go Dimension 20. If I'm looking for an established, steady, comfortable campaign, then I go Critical Role. Critical Role is kind of the first one that I got into back, not when it started, but soon after it started. I think I picked up when they were on episode 80 or 90
Oh,
of their campaign one. So it was
oh.
a ways in, but a ways ago.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
that was a while ago. Like, man, so you're almost an OG critter.
almost, almost. I wish I could say I was there from the beginning, but my friend was telling me about it because we had this small, irregularly meeting D&D group with my high school buddies, and he said that I I would always talk about how I was unsure of what to do as a dungeon master because that was my role, my assigned role. And he says, "Oh, you should watch this thing, Critical Role."
Oh,
And I was like, "Nah, that sounds stupid. I don't want to do that." And I should have listened to him.
oh, so like he was introducing you to it even sooner than when you started.
Correct.
Wow. Okay.
Correct.
I mean, like he has a really good point. I feel like just about with anything, watching someone else do it and watching other people do it, you learn a lot, like a lot.
For sure.
So,
For sure. And just being, especially with these live play TTRPG shows like Dimension 20 and Critical Role, and then there's one called Dungeon Daddies. You can't, that one's just podcast only, but
yeah.
like they're so immersive, it's hard not to see and get involved in the story.
Mhm.
Um, that you could never replicate what they do, but you can emulate it very easily because you were there.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
just lived it just like the players did. So
Yeah. And like we might this is just the very beginning, but it's opening all the cans of worms. We might end up talking about this, but like I've always felt like this tabletop gaming and role playing is very much like a group of people telling a story with some version of structure and chaos to it. And if you're watching or participating, you're gonna get sucked in to that story.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And like I think for me, that has always been like the biggest draw is that you can collectively create this whole adventure, this whole world. Uh and I've always really liked that storytelling aspect of it. But yeah, the different shows, the different podcasts, some of them are super funny, some of them are really serious. Um but you can learn a lot how to play and how to be a game master just from listening to them.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. The other thing I've noticed is just when you watch TV or you watch a TV show, you're watching the world that the show exists in, and
Yeah.
it's there. But when you listen to or watch these live play games, the world is building around you. And so you're not as impacted by the story as the actual players, but you're watching the world unfold just as they are. And it's way more immersive than your standard TV show.
Yeah, I really feel that. Like I really feel that. I've I mean I watch a lot of different shows. I've watched a lot of different movies. I've been to like plays and musicals and read books and that type of thing. But yeah, like something about these tabletop games, it because it's all in your imagination, you know? It's all in your head and the story is actively unfolding day after day, session after session. You're kind of going through the journey with the players. And it can make it a very rich story experience. Um it's
Absolutely.
it's so cool. Like and this is a game. Like this is a
Yeah.
game. This is just a bunch of people like sitting around a table rolling dice and eating snacks and telling goofy stories, but my gosh, like it can be powerful. It can be very powerful.
Absolutely.
This is great. I'm really glad we're having this topic together because I feel like we're just gonna get deeper and deeper. It's really good. I'm gonna roll the dice next and we'll see what else we get to talk about. Wow, that was a 3. We're doing so good. Okay. So my question is, have you introduced others to Dungeons and Dragons? How did it go? What did you do, etc.? Um, yes, I have. Since I caught the bug, the virus. Um, I've definitely introduced other people to tabletop gaming as well. Um, I feel like my first well, I guess my like first attempt was like with our original game. Cameron and I play in a campaign together, and he's the dungeon master. Um, and early on, I invited one of our other mutual friends, Michael, to join us. Um, I mostly just was like, hey, it's COVID. Nothing's happening. We're all sad and trapped in our houses. Do you want to play this game with us? And he was like, sure, I've never done this before. And I was like, me neither. Um, so I don't feel like I did a super great job introducing him because I was so new to the game myself. But at the same time, I feel like my attempt was also really genuine and he played with us for quite a while.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is everybody in that group was relatively new.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And it was a really safe group for him to join. He really, really struggled with the rules and keeping track of what he could and couldn't do at any point in time, or at one point in time, rather.
We all
But
we all
yeah,
it was
like,
so
but really, it was just a few months before that that you guys were all in that exact same spot. And so you guys were all able to help him remember, okay, I can do this now, but oh wait, I already did this turn, so I have to wait until next turn to do that. And just kind of help keep him track and really just allow him to learn in a safe environment where, and by safe I mean like judgment free environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just kind of figure out what he wanted to be. And it took a while for him to really develop his character. But you and I have talked about this. There was one time where all of a sudden he just starts role playing, because up until that point he'd been just a character there who would punch things really
Yeah.
hard, really fast.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he wanted to talk to one of the NPCs about being an orphan, which he just decided was his character's backstory in that
Yeah.
exact moment.
Just out of
And
the
we're
blue.
like, cool, roll with it, move on, like go with it.
Yeah.
And like that was a cool moment seeing him develop. And then, but I got the opportunity to see all of you guys
Yeah.
do that one by one at different points as you became more comfortable. But then all of you got to see him do that as well.
Yeah. I like since introducing him to the game, I've introduced more people. And some attempts like with my family have gone better than others, but I feel like the best part is when you've gained a little bit of experience, you kind of know what's going on, and you can watch someone else go through that same little journey of like figuring out just like the crunchy rules, like
Mhm.
this is how my character sheet works. This is how this, because there's a lot of rules and it can be really intimidating when you first start. So there's kind of a growth, like a learning curve with that. And then you kind of figure out like, oh, this is just the basic rules. This is how to play. And you start playing with those rules a little bit. You start like
Yeah.
envelope a little bit, and you start to realize like, oh, this is a dynamic world that I can add to, that I can do stuff in, that I can act and react to. And you start playing with that and kind of um coming out of your shell a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everybody, it's and it was different for us because when we started playing, we were remote playing because of
Mm-hmm.
how COVID did everything. And I've played now with other groups in person, and so I've been able to experience like both. But when I played in person, I had already gotten over the like natural inhibition that you kind of have to role playing. Like
Yeah.
role playing's weird. Like if you think about it, it's really weird. And like I still remember like our first few sessions, like you'd be like, "Oh, do you want to go talk to this person?" And Katie was like, "Hard no." Like, "No, I don't want to talk to this person. I don't know how to. Like, what? How do I interact with this world?" Like it was awkward and weird, and now it's one of my absolute favorite things. Like it's so great. It's so great, but there's a big learning curve because you kind of have this like shyness and that type of thing. At least that's how it was for me, and you feel like weird about it. And yeah, I loved watching Michael go through that same little journey that we went through and seeing like subsequent like other friends go through that, and like some figure it out like real fast. Like they get
Yeah.
it immediately. They're like, "Oh, I could climb this tree. I could jump off this cliff. I could like set stuff on fire." Or like, "Ooh, cool." And other people, it takes a while to just kind of like figure it out. But I love watching people figure out how fun this can be, because the only thing that really limits you is the rules, but like your imagination within those rules.
Yeah. And I was going to say exactly that. You're only limited by your imagination, and then whatever the dungeon master is willing to, whatever types of shenanigans the dungeon master will allow at that moment.
Yeah, exactly. And like there's like we talked about like there's a learning curve to it. Like there's a learning curve of realizing that you can try anything, but then also realizing like when to try things, when not to try things, and playing
Yes.
the game so that it's fun for everybody. But yeah, that would be Michael was definitely the first person that I introduced it to. But yeah, I've since like played with my family. And I now have a group going of coworkers. Some have played before, some had never played, and this was their like first time. And it's cool. It's cool. It's really fun. Seeing people grow addicted to table
Yes.
RPGs. It's really fun. It's really fun. Did you have anything else to add to that? I'm kind of curious of on your side because you introduced me to Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I feel like I've introduced everybody. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's not really the case, but the majority of the people I have ever played with, I feel like I've introduced between my family, the group we play with here, except for Son and Jocelyn and Michelle, like
Yeah.
everyone at one point or another. And it's just kind of been some of them, you know, we didn't start with the right group. And so that group fell apart. And then now we got a better one.
Mhm.
I I mean, everyone kind of goes through the same steps and progression. Like, okay, I have no idea what all these numbers mean, what, where, when, how, why, how. And then once they understand their character, then they're like, oh, my character exists in this world, but my character exists within me. And so I exist within this world that is being developed around me. And then I always say that D&D, and I haven't played any other tabletop games, but I imagine they're similar, but it's a cooperative storytelling game. It's not just the dungeon master telling you what's happening to your characters, it's you telling the dungeon master how your character interacts with the world he or she's created.
Yeah. I love that. I love that explanation because like it could Dungeons and Dragons, tabletop RPGs, like they can be so many different things, but really like at their core, like what are we doing? We are creatively telling a story with multiple people. Uh
Right.
and like there are rules to make it work and to make it make sense. And the game master is there to kind of guide you through those rules and to help you know when they apply and how they apply. But like ultimately it is you, the players, interacting with this system, this world, this universe, whatever it is that you're in. And that can be anything. And it's really cool.
I agree. That's
Yeah.
what draws me to it. The watching the world develop and an active role in it.
Yeah, yeah. It could go so many different directions. It can be funny and goofy. It can be like really scary. It can be so many different things. And yeah, I I'm very drawn by that too. If you
Well,
can.
and well, and not only can it be a whole bunch of different ways, just like real life, it changes. Like,
Yeah.
whoops, I just dropped my die on my desk. It was very loud. Um,
Okay.
just like in real life, moments of your story are going to be scary.
Mhm.
Moments of them are going to be joyful. And so it emulates real life, but you get to interact with it in ways that maybe you're not comfortable with in real life. Like your character can do things that you can't, both physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, what have you.
Yeah.
And it gives you an opportunity to do these things that you can't actually do, or you can't allow yourself to do.
Yeah. Maybe you haven't tried. Maybe like that's too much for you, like whatever it is. But yeah, or maybe it's not possible, right? Like magic's not really like a thing. Well, okay. Katie Katie feels like science is pretty magical, but like that's a little different than like, ooh, I'm going to like cast levitate and make my friends float, like that's a little different. Maybe you can't do that in real life, but that's a thing that you can try and that you can explore in this world. It's almost like a safety net, right? Like you
Mhm.
can do things, you can try things that were either too scary or too hard or basically impossible, or intimidating or what have you in a safe place where, okay, maybe consequences happen, right? And bad stuff happens to your character, but it allows you to then play with that and experiment with that and see what that's like for that character without it necessarily being like, you burnt down a town, okay, you're gonna go to jail now, like in real life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The consequences are greatly reduced for
Yeah.
doing stuff in tabletop games.
Like that same thing for good things, right? For whatever you do and however you create this story. It's like it's a sandbox. It's a sandbox for us to like play and explore different ways of life, different mindsets, different kinds of people, different ways of looking at the world and reacting to the world. It's very interesting.
Very.
Anyway, as per usual on this podcast, we kind of go all over the place. But you wanna roll the dice again and see what other questions we get?
Absolutely. We have an 18.
18.
Oh, that's much better than our other rolls.
I know. I try to make sure, like, since
They're
this,
well distributed.
yeah, since this is a D&D podcast, for those of you who don't know, the 20-sided dice is kind of your like dice that you use to determine like, did you do the thing well or did you not? And if you roll low, you don't do as good, and if you roll high, you do better. With the way I've done my questions, I try to make sure that it's a good distribution throughout. I usually try to make sure like 20 is going to be really good and 1 is going to be like, ooh, like really cringy, but 18 18's great. Ooh, okay. And this relates to kind of what we were talking about. The question is, are you in this game for the role playing, for the combat, for the XP? Like what is your biggest motivator, whether you're a player or a DM, etc., etc.
Oh, I'm just in it for the real life friends. Like, I
Aww.
don't care what it is. Like we kind of talked about it, but
Yeah.
like our group, I set up our group. I invited some people I knew back when COVID was hitting
Yeah.
hard. Like
Well, it was rough.
I went away for spring break, third year of school, and never went back. Like just
Yeah.
never went back. And that was hard because where I was living alone with a bunch of animals, literally animals that would scream at me every time I walked out my door.
There was even some animals that weren't invited. There were some mice. There were some adventures with mice.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
like
tested.
I found people to play D&D with me because I needed friends. I needed people to talk
Aw.
to interact with. And believe it or not, we play almost every single week. And it's because that's my human interaction that's not related to my job. That's not related to something stupid that I don't want to do. This is my not benefit. This is my
This is your like
reward. This is my
reward.
reward to myself for putting up with whatever crap I had to deal with that week. I get to go and play Dungeons and Dragons with my friends.
Yeah.
So all of that is great. The combat, min maxing, character creation, world building, role playing, it's all great. But I don't care about any of that. Like,
Aw.
that's just the vehicle that allows me to get what I'm really there for, time with my friends. So,
So what you're saying, Cameron, is that the real treasure was the friends you made along the way.
yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Oh, that's great. That's really great. But honestly, it makes for a really, really good point. Um, I I've always loved games. I've always loved storytelling, and I am very much a people person. And so I've always liked having large groups of friends to like hang out with, go do stuff with. And I since being introduced to Dungeons and Dragons, I have more friends now that I would consider like very close friends than I've had at one time in my life. which is super weird to think about, I feel like, as a working adult. You know, just like a normal person adult, like doing your adult things, going through your adult life. I feel like your friend group tends to be like, once you reach that stage, it's either like, okay, it's you, it's maybe your significant other, maybe their family, maybe a few people at work if you get along with your people at work, and then like a few people that have stuck with you since like school. And that's kind of
Yeah.
it. And they're all kind of their own little groups. They don't all blob together. Uh this it's so crazy, but like this game has given me large, very connected friend groups that I never would have connected with otherwise, right?
Right.
And, and wouldn't have stayed connected with otherwise. Um I think something about our group specifically is that we've always played remotely, because of like kind of how it happened with COVID initially. And then like we started when we were both still in school, and most of the people that were in the group were also in school. And now some of us are gadgeted and working, and we live in different states, you know?
Right.
Every now and then we'll get together and play in person, which is super fun, but like like you said, we still play every single week just about.
Yeah.
Which is very rare for all you people who are listening who are like, what is this podcast even about? Like, it's super rare for a D&D group or any tabletop RPG group to consistently play basically every week for multiple months and or years. Like, that's super rare. Um and I'm really grateful for it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of the reason we're able to play so regularly is the way we set it up. We don't
Yeah.
have to meet together. We
Wow.
like couldn't meet together when we started. So we had to figure out a way where we could play across multiple states. We could play from multiple houses. We could play from multiple areas of quarantine, what have you. And with that, it's meant we've been able to, as people, move on or lose interest or run out of time or for whatever reason they have to leave the group. It's really easy to bring in new people to kind of keep the group going strong. We also like, and don't get me wrong, when Katie and I say that we meet almost every week, not everyone meets every week.
Oh
Like
yeah. Yeah.
it's very much a drop in, drop out. If you can come, come. If you can't, don't, type of a thing. We set it up that way on purpose because when we started, several of us were going through school and our hours were stupid and you just couldn't guarantee that you were going to be available.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that everyone felt like they could just come in and out whenever they were available. And so I made sure to stress that at the beginning, that if you can't come, that's fine. We'll figure something out. Your character's sleeping this session. We always make jokes about how they're there, but they're zoned out.
They're
They're
not.
non-responsive, type of a
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
And so your character's there, but just not really.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of the time, you miss 1, 2, 3 sessions in a row, and boom, you're right back in. You get a quick review of where we're at, and you just keep on trucking.
Yeah, you keep on keeping on. And
Yep.
like that's kind of how we've set it up with our group. That was kind of a dynamic that we established early on, and it was flexible enough that we've kind of played with it since then, and it made it very, very doable to be a long sustained game and group of friends. And like everybody's group is going to do something different and find that something different works for them, but that has worked super well, like super well for us. And yeah, it's meant that we've been able to have that flexibility because we are all adults supposedly, and have adult schedules, and sometimes you can't join for a while. and then other times you can be really consistent. And I think that has, for me at least, helped to make this game less intimidating, because I feel like there's two things that are kind of intimidating with tabletop role-playing games, where one, there is a lot of rules and a lot of things to learn, so that in and of itself can be really intimidating for a new player. And then there's the understanding of, this is not a quick card game that you're going to play like once in a while. This is not a like, oh, game of Monopoly or whatever. Like, this is it's kind of a heck of a commitment if you're committing to like a whole story. If it's like a one shot, then it's a one shot supposedly. Maybe it's a
Right.
two shot, right? But like, the idea of having to like commit to it almost like you're committing to like a second job or whatever can be really like off-putting, and can make it hard for people to consistently play.
Right.
But for ours, one, like, it's just so fun that I want to be here, and like, two, I know if I can't, or if I have something else come up, then it's fine.
Right. You'll catch us the next time.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that question kind of went out into the weeds, but it was such a good it's such a good time. I was not expecting you to say that, but honestly, I should have been. I should have been.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've only been joking about it all the time. You know,
Literally, yeah.
I keep trying to get you guys to accept that there's not a reward for this big quest because it's just the friends you made along the way.
Oh my
None of
God.
you like that. You all get mad at me. And then I reveal to you the real reward, but it doesn't stop me from saying it.
Yeah. We just so guys, this campaign that we've been playing since COVID. It's now been 3 years, almost 4 by next
Yeah.
spring. And we had a huge fight with the big bad evil guy, and usually there's like treasure or whatever, and we were looking for it, and he was joking the whole time, like, well, it's the friends you made along the way.
Yeah. Why do you need material rewards? Like, isn't the fact that you and your friends are all alive good enough? No, it was not.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. And I still feel that, like, in my soul as a player. I definitely feel that. But again, like, I agree. I agree with everything that Cameron said about the friendships and everything. Like, it has, especially like, I am a very social person, and very much care about having those connections with people. I've loved how many doors this has opened and how many people I now get to interact with and connect with on a regular basis, and that I can share this addiction with everybody. I just want everybody to know about it. It's so great.
The first hit's free, but you got to pay for all the others.
All the other ones. Yeah. Yeah. But to answer my own question, am I in it for the role play, the combat, the XP, the character creation? I feel like when it comes to like the game itself, I really like role playing. Like,
I've
combat.
noticed that.
What? Really? You've noticed
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. Your characters are not great at fighting.
No.
They're
And like,
just not. And that's fine. That's fine. There's more to the game than fighting, but they are not good at fighting. They are not built to fight.
well, part of that is our group dynamic and kind of how we've made our group. Um, Part of that is also my class choice is not really a heavy combat class. But I do like combat. I like the crunchiness. I love rolling the dice and like seeing the big numbers, and like, that's really fun. But if I had to pick one versus the other, it would definitely be like role playing. Because of the story, because the storytelling aspect of it.
Yeah. It does advance the story. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's way more interaction with the world around you when you're role playing than when you're in combat.
Mm-hmm. And they're both great. Like, I like having both. I wouldn't know what to do with myself if I had a game where I didn't have really any combat, because then what do I get these cool stats for?
Yeah, you can only use so many of them in role-playing situations. Like, oh, I'm gonna flex my muscles really hard so I can use my high strength score.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, like, okay, like you can make that work and stuff, but like, what do you get the treasure for? What do you get the cool magic weapon for? What do you get the cool
How do
shiny?
you slay the dragon if you don't fight it?
Yeah. How do you do the adventure thing if you don't fight stuff? So like I do really like combat because then you can use all those crunchy stats and be like, ooh, dice. But yeah, that's that's that answer for me, but also ditto to everything.
Yeah. Once someone puts that answer out, you sound like a jerk if you don't agree with them.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like you kind of have to like having friends if you like Dungeons and Dragons. Like if you don't like having friends, why are you playing this game? Like
Well, yeah, like it's a cooperative storytelling game. And if there's no cooperation,
oh, it's not fun.
there's no Dungeons and Dragons.
No, it's not a good time anymore. It's
No.
great. Oh. All right. Well, I think we have probably time for one more question. If you're good with that, I will roll this dice and see if I can get out of the single digit numbers. That was a 6.
Oh boy.
So the answer is no. But it's not a 1. So this question with Stranger Things, podcasts, YouTubers, the new D&D movie, Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role playing has started to become more mainstream. What are your feelings about this for the game in general? Um, I'm kind of curious about your feelings about this more than mine because I didn't really get introduced to this whole world until it was already starting to become more and more popular. And more commonplace that people know what this game is and how it works and stuff. Um, but I think it's great because I'm a fan and I just want everybody to like it because it's so fun. And I love seeing the different stories that other people make with like their games. So, or seeing how it's integrated into like pop culture, like in Stranger Things and stuff. Like that's so fun. Like that's such a fun thing for me to see. I thought the Dungeons and Dragons movie was hilarious. And I just want more. I just want more of it. Like I'm not sad that this is becoming more popular. I'm over the moon. Like it's fun. Everybody should play this game.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the same thing. Like, how do I feel about it becoming more mainstream and more popular? Fantastic. Like, why would I feel any other way? Oh no, no one else can play this game. It's only mine. No, everybody should play this game. I
Yeah.
remember because I started playing back in eighth grade, and at the time, my parents were very against it because they grew up in the 80s when Dungeons and Dragons was a satanic worship cult,
Yeah.
whatever. And I remember in order to play, well, not in order to play, my school had a after school role playing games club
Oh,
where
cool.
we really just played D&D, but I couldn't tell my parents that. I had to tell them it was a role playing games club.
Yeah.
And so because if I were to play D&D, I would not be allowed.
But
And
role-playing game, that sounds very vanilla, you know, with
yeah,
the
exactly.
background that your parents have, because that was very much the stereotype of Dungeons and Dragons for such a long time. Was that like it was this weird cult?
Right. Right. And if you've seen Stranger Things, especially the fourth season, they talk about
Oh yeah.
that the Hellfire Gaming Club, which is run by Eddie, the character in there, and then the main characters kind of join. They blame them for all the bad things that happens in the town of Hawkins, Indiana.
Mhm.
And just it really kind of highlights and plays back into the whole mass hysteria people had about Dungeons and Dragons because, and it all comes back to you could fight devils, you could fight demons, and you could play a god worshiping cleric or paladin that was able to use the god's power. And
Yeah.
people just lost their mind at all of that.
Yeah.
And that's the world my parents grew up in. So I had to kind of keep it all a secret from them.
Wow.
And then just kind of fell out of it until I got into college
Mhm.
uh, or late high school, really. And then we were playing secret downstairs in my room with a different group of friends. But now that has become more popular and we're hearing good stories come out of it. And people are realizing that, oh, just because there are devils and demons in it doesn't mean my child is worshiping devils and demons. In fact, most of the time they're fighting these devils and demons.
Yeah.
You know, they're
Yeah.
usually the bad guys, not always, but they're usually the bad guys. Um, it's it's really interesting to see how accepted it is this time around when it was so outlawed and ostracized anyone involved with it
Oh yeah.
when it first came around. Like I even got my mom to willing not willingly.
Pick those words carefully.
Yeah, no, it's during some of our games I would play at home because I'd be home visiting, and she would just come and sit in the room and listen to it.
Yeah.
Like she knew I was playing Dungeons and Dragons, and when I first told her that's what I was going to do, I was worried she was going to get upset about it, but then I realized, wait, I'm an adult now and I don't actually care. So I just told her what I was doing, and several sessions in, she just started listening because she could see how this game was creating a positive influence in my life and interacting with my friends. I got two of my siblings to join with us, and they play with us regularly. Um, and I even one Christmas when I went back, because they live in a different state than me right now. And so I went back for Christmas one year and I asked my siblings if, hey, you guys think it'd be fun if we played Dungeons and Dragons one time while I'm down there? And yeah. And then we actually invited both my parents. My dad said, no way. He he says, nah, I'm not doing that. But my mom says, absolutely, I want to play.
Aw.
It was just I remember we played like this Harry Potter based one shot thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so what you got to do is you got to tell everybody what your character looks like, and you got to say why they came to study at this. I think I called it the Hogwash Academy of Magic or something. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Um, and she talked about how she her character talked about, excuse me, how she came to this school because it seemed fun and she wanted to try something new. And that was the moment where I realized that that wasn't my mom's character speaking. Like that was my mom telling everybody at the table why she agreed to play,
Yeah.
because she saw how much the rest of us enjoyed it and she wanted to try something new.
Yeah.
And honestly, she had a blast. I think she ended up excuse me, defeating the bad guy,
Oh,
who was some Professor Quirrell lookalike thing,
yeah.
and like ending the game. And at the end, like she had to stop several times to make dinner or whatever. But we were playing in the kitchen anyway, so she was a part of it. She was just listening from the other side of the room. I remember she was like, wait, so we did it? There's no more? And I said, yeah, there's no more. Like, what more would we do? And I just remember seeing her face, and she wanted there to be more. She wanted
Oh,
another quest.
yes.
But we'd already been playing for 4 hours, and like we had things to do. We couldn't
Yeah.
just sit and play Dungeons and Dragons all day.
No. As much as we all actually want to do that, we can't. Can't.
Yeah. So I mean, that was a long way to say that I'm really, really grateful that it's becoming more mainstream and more accepted in modern society,
Yeah.
because then I don't have to keep it a secret from people. Like I can own it, and I don't have people around me aren't going to make me feel bad for doing something that I really enjoy.
Exactly. And like that to me is one of like the biggest things with this game, because like when you really understand what it is and you really understand how good it is for you, a human, to play this game, how good it is for you with like psychologically, emotionally, in your relationships, and just how fun it is, like my gosh, yes, everybody should know about this game. Everybody should try to play this game. And like maybe it's not going to be your cup of tea, and that's fine. That's totally fine. But everybody should give it a try because it's so fun. It's so good. Like, yeah. I love that you brought up that your parents were like, you had to hide it from them. Like I feel like that's so many people's story. And because like I didn't grow up playing Dungeons and Dragons or role playing or that type of thing. But I have very conservative parents, like to the point that like when Harry Potter was first coming out, when the books were first coming out, we weren't allowed to read them for a while because they were probably satanic, like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's very much the family that I came from. And then my mom, bless her, I love her, she read them and realized that they weren't satanic and was like, yeah, no, you can read these. But like thank goodness. And I too have tried introducing my family to Dungeons and Dragons, and with varying success, and that's okay. But my dad has not really liked that I've been into this game, and he tried to tell me this story as like a cautionary tale, and it cracks me up. So he had a roommate in college who had a group of friends that all played Dungeons and Dragons. And like my dad is older than the hills, so this was a long time ago. And they were all into Dungeons and Dragons except him. And he would see them play like once a week or so. And he told me about how like his roommate and his friends were just like so into this game. Like it's all they wanted to talk about. It's all they wanted to do. They were just like so excited by this game. And he was telling me this because he was like, isn't that terrible? Like all they wanted to do was spend time with their friends playing this game. Like, oh, wasn't that awful? And
The
it makes
worst. How dare they?
yeah, it just makes me laugh because like no. No. What a great thing to have. I'm sorry that you were excluded for whatever reason, maybe because you were being judgmental, but like, and that's on your friends, it's also kind of on you. But like, no, what a great thing that they had, and what a great thing that we have. I don't want anybody to be excluded from it because they're worried that they're going to be so invested in it that they're going to want to play it more. Like, oh darn.
Oh no, we really like this thing.
Yeah, it just makes me laugh because like you think about like, well, what about football? That's a
Right.
game. That's
Why
a
is
game.
this different than any other hobby out there?
Yeah, that's a game that people can become so invested in. That's all they want to talk about. They can make it their career. They can do great things. They can be a great influence in other people's lives. They can get lots of concussions, just like all the great things, right? You can play it as a little kid, you can play it in high school, and nobody really bats an eye at it if it's like, oh, if it's football or basketball, or maybe you run track or something. But all of a sudden it's weird when it's like a game like Dungeons and Dragons, or maybe it's a fandom that you really like Star Wars, or you're really into anime or whatever it is. But like I don't think anybody should ever be ashamed of something that they really enjoy, that brings them happiness, that they want to share with other people, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, like why is it different than football? Because you don't go outside? Well, how
Play
many
that.
people actually play football now? And
Yeah.
how many people who are really into football sit on the couch and scope out their fantasy football team? Like, why is this different than that?
Yeah.
They're playing football in their imagination through their fantasy football characters
Mhm.
that they with their friends in order to accomplish some goal. Like, how is this any different?
Yeah, I don't really see it as different, but for whatever reason, one is mainstream and acceptable and the other one isn't. And this isn't, I don't use that example to like hate on football. I also enjoy watching football games. I do not want to play. I am small. But I have a fun time watching sports and stuff too. But I think it's a really good parallel to help people who are outside of one world and the other world understand each other better, because both of us are passionate about this thing that we enjoy. Both of us want to share it. Both of us use it as a way to connect with people, to relieve stress, and to have fun together. And just because we do it in different ways doesn't make one better than the other, or one bad and the other one good. Like, they're really not that different.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was the funniest thing ever when my dad was telling me that story to try to spook me away from playing Dungeons and Dragons, because the whole time I'm just thinking like, great, like your roommate made friends, like good for him.
Well, and consistent friends that he did stuff with.
Yeah, and
like that he looked forward to doing things with. And guess what? Probably wasn't out doing drugs and alcohol, doing things with negative impacts on their life. Like, oh no, he spent a couple hours a week where he didn't go out and play football, or he didn't go out and talk to new people. Like, what was he missing out on, really?
Honestly, yeah, like what are we missing out on when we play Dungeons and Dragons? I don't know.
I don't know.
I love it for all the reasons that we've talked about. I love it, and like I've said, like our group, I've stayed connected with those people because of it. The other groups that I've like come and gone into, I've connected with. I have my group of coworkers that I play with now too. Like, it's so good. It's so good for me. And like, I've seen it benefit other people too. And I just want that for everybody, for them to find the friendship treasure at the end of the adventure. Dang. I feel like we could talk about Dungeons and Dragons, obviously, for a very long time. And maybe we'll have to do like another episode where we share goofy stories from our game. But this is all. Oh, I know, it would be so good. There would be so many. But this is all we have time for today. But we will talk at you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.